Are you feeling trapped?
No. Am I trapped?
I don't know. Last time you said you felt super trapped. So you
because my arms were trapped. So I don't feel trapped. I can clap.
I'm gonna get rid of the beanie. Oh, almost made it.
All right, may I clap? Let me know when. Okay.
I've never seen you excited for the clap
Ready to
before.
clap? I feel challenged. Okay.
Go ahead, do it.
That was a good clap.
That was a very good
Thank
clap.
you very
Nice
much.
job. First effort. It's not often you get it on the first try. So
Exactly.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to Editing Academy. I'm Daryl.
I'm Laura.
And Laura, as we ask each and every episode, what's the year and what are the films?
These are the movies that were up for Best Picture in 1983, meaning that they were released between January 1st, December 31st, 1982. And the movies are E.T. the Extraterrestrial, Missing, The Verdict, Gandhi, and Tootsie.
All right. Other films that were released this year, there are a lot of them, and there were a lot of important ones, so bear with me here, people. Sophie's Choice, so surprised that was not nominated.
Yeah.
The Year of Living Dangerously, Diner, Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, The World According to Garp, I love that film. Night Shift, Victor Victoria, The Dark Crystal, An Officer and a Gentleman, again, surprised it wasn't nominated.
Me too.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High, 48 Hours, My Favorite Year, King of Comedy, Rambo First Blood, The Thing, and Poltergeist.
Ah, love it.
So that was a decent year for film. Not reflected in...
However, the Academy went another way.
What would you like to start with?
Let's start with E.T. because it is first on my list.
All right. E.T., produced and directed by Steven Spielberg, written by Melissa Matheson. The film stars Dee Wallace, Henry Thomas, Peter Coyote, Robert McNaughton, and Drew Barrymore. Was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Cinematography, Best Original Screenplay, Editing, Original Score, Visual Effects, Sound Mixing, and it's Sound Editing. It won for Score, Visual Effects, and Sound Editing. Go with the facts.
Okay, here is the fun fact, which is, as you know, most movies are taped kind of out of order as it makes sense for the shooting schedule. This movie was shot mostly in chronological order because Steven Spielberg wanted to make it easier for the child stars to have an emotional arc with E.T. of meeting him, getting to know him, and saying goodbye.
That's it?
Well, I got another one, but it's not as interesting. In that, that was it. That was my fun fact.
Okay.
But E.T. also, if you watch the movie Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, when they go around to all of the different races of aliens, E.T. is in there.
Yeah.
So.
And in this film, they both pay homage to each other frequently in their films. In this one, he's playing with Star Wars figures and they dress as things that are... Anyway. Okay. I've never liked E.T.
Okay.
I understand why it was popular, but to me, this is the start of where Steven kind of splits his filmmaking, where he goes for these serious, well-crafted movies, and then he goes for the lighter kind of movie, and over his career, he's kind of merged those two, and the lighter ones go directly for emotion and pull right on the heartstrings, and you're manipulated, which he had never done in his films before. The emotions were genuine and earned. This one, you're manipulated all the way through. And I don't like when films do that.
So I think this is the point in doing the podcast that I should share with our audience and with you that I have a cold, dead heart. Because I do not like the movie E.T.
Good, we're on the same page.
I have never liked it. I will say I always wondered, so I'm assuming, did you see it as a child?
Yeah, I saw it when it came out.
Okay, I didn't. My dad was the moviegoer in the family and he did not like science fiction-y things. So for the most part, we didn't go see those as kids. I didn't see this till I was an adult. I didn't like it then, I don't like it now. I did wonder if it was because I didn't see it as a kid that maybe I didn't have that emotional attachment to it.
Sure.
But you're right, the emotion is not earned. We've talked about that. The emotional manipulation is fine, but this one is not earned at all.
Not at all. I mean, I will say that I think probably for people that like the film, it probably still holds up. Because I had the same reaction watching it this time, which was probably the third or fourth time, that I did the first time, which is like, I'm aware that I'm being manipulated. It's well crafted. It is Steven Spielberg, and we'll talk about some of the choices and things. But that crafting of the emotion all the way through and telegraphing it just takes me out of anything at any point in time. I don't care how well crafted something is. When you tell me how I have to feel, fuck you in the first place.
Ornery.
I do.
So there is an inherent sweetness in the movie. I will absolutely say that. And my heart is not so cold and dead that when I see Drew Barrymore, she's adorable. She's absolutely adorable. She's the cutest
and also
thing.
on drugs.
And not at that point. I think like maybe a year later. But
She
not
said
right
she
at that
was
point.
offered cocaine for the first time on the set of E.T.
Oh, that's just heartbreaking.
It is.
Oh God. Okay.
I don't think she took it then, but
Okay.
she was offered.
That's horrifying and terrifying. And also the E.T. creature is very cute as well.
It is. Big
it's
eyes.
very cute. Yeah, big eyes, cute emotions and all of that. The problem I had with this was, what is the theme of this movie? I have like so many whys. Why are they connected? You know, he and Elliot. Why did the connection break? When he died? Why was he resurrected? I mean, I know love is probably the answer to all of that, but I don't think it earned it.
No, and some of the other themes are inherent trust, like Elliot just trusts from the beginning, even though, you know, he's been told don't go play with these things, there's a coyote out there are dangerous things,
Yes.
he just instantly trusts in the character.
Yep.
I mean, that helps the plot move along, sure. Mom, after her first reaction, trusts the character. Everybody that meets him just instantly...
Peter Coyote.
Yeah, everybody's just like, oh, alien being, of course you're going to be super
He's
kind
got
of
big
nice.
eyes and he's adorable. I'm sure it's fine. Yeah, exactly. The other thing, can we talk about Mary for a minute?
Sure.
I was a child in the 80s. I get the whole free-range children, and most of them were unsupervised and all that kind of stuff. Mary was a terrible parent, though. I mean, I'm sorry. She left, like, Elliot alone at home while she went out, you know, while she went off to work. He was borderline. That was probably fine. But I thought leaving Drew Barrymore alone at home while she went off to get Elliot, that was a little questionable. Throw your kid in the car.
Yes. We will both admit that it was a different time period.
It was 1,000% a different
I mean,
time. Yeah.
like the idea of you buckling your kids into a seatbelt was just like, why? What's the
Sure.
point?
Yeah.
If you're home by sundown, I'm happy.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
different parenting styles, different time. But yes, she's a little bit more neglectful than even parents were at that period of time.
Exactly. Yes, it was a different time, but like the Halloween is, I do remember, go off with your friends and come back, you know, an hour after dark. That's totally reasonable, but.
Mine was simply like, if you're home by the time I'm making dinner, great, otherwise you can eat it later. Like, it was not a mandatory thing, it's just like, if you're around, great.
But at 6, at 7? I mean,
I'm with
I think it's a little older. Yeah.
I'm with you.
Anyway.
The opening, I thought, is a bold choice for this movie because you're instantly shown the aliens
Yes.
rather than hold it back like
Yep.
he's done in other films. And the fact that you can see that they're on some sort of exploratory mission, although why in this big kind of open wooded area is strange, so close to civilization. Like, Amazon may have been a better choice, just saying. One of the things that the film, I think, does very well is sound, which it did win the award for. The sounds that they have throughout are very well crafted and
Agreed.
on display. E.T. purring, that's an example.
Adorable.
It is
That
adorable,
yeah.
100%. And that's what I'm saying, is
Yeah.
they chose to actually accentuate sound throughout the movie.
Great.
I think they handled that very well. Spielberg, again, does know how to craft tension very well.
No. Go ahead. We're going to say the same things, I bet. Go for it.
The tension in this one was fine. It just wasn't up to his normal levels, I thought. Like, he knew when tension should be crafted, and again, he just went for the heartstring tension rather than actual genuine tension of things.
Yes.
The closest it ever got was the scene when they go out to the shed where you don't know what's happening and what's
Yes.
out there. That was the closest tension. Once the government shows up, this movie takes a completely different turn. It's a different movie. The tension that is supposed to be there is ridiculously dumb. The scene of everybody walking for, like, what seemed like 5 minutes, but it was like 45 seconds, with all the government people walking
yeah.
in the sunset towards the house. Like,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
And that's only one example of what I'm talking about is like the attempt at manipulation.
That was the moment that I was going to talk about, was that was not, it was, you knew he was trying to build tension. You didn't actually feel the tension. The only thing I will give them was when she opened the door and the person was there in that great big, hazmat suit. That was actually a little startling. So I thought that but it was a visual cue. It was not because of tension being built.
And then it became Keystone Cops. They were coming in everywhere.
Yep. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah. That's basically the only points that I have to make is I think this film could be, I get that it's a classic now, it's probably on the AFI's list.
It is, I missed that, thank you. It is on AFI's list right now of number 25.
Jesus Christ.
Super high. It has actually gone up a step. It was number 25, so it's gone up to 24.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
And I get that this film is near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. I guess my point is, knowing the Steven Spielberg that we've seen thus far, this is such a dramatic turn for him, and one he stays on a path with a lot of his films from here on out, and I don't understand why. This could have been such a much better film if it had been the Steven Spielberg that we've known from previous films.
Just so many better movies. And also, like I said, the themes were just so muddy. Like, I did not enjoy the entire scene where Elliot is in school and E.T. is at home, and so he's feeling and experiencing why are they connected?
Yep.
They never explain that, and also the whole thing about the frogs, that was just disgusting. I was dissecting frogs in school probably at that same time, and the frogs at least came to you dead. They didn't kill them in front of you. That's like wildly barbaric. I know the 80s were a terrible time, but I don't think it was that bad. And then the whole kiss, the quiet man he's watching on TV, and it seemed very odd.
Yeah, there were a lot of odd choices that were made. One thing I think that he did do well is with the flower showing the status of E.T.
That made sense,
That I thought was a good choice. That was the Stephen that we know and expect. But that was a rare moment in this for that Stephen to show up.
Or even healing Elliot's cut, it's he has healing properties, I understand that. But the rest of the connections, I just didn't get.
Yeah. Last positive thing I'll say, and then I'm done with this movie, is that, I can't remember the actor's name, the guy who plays Elliot.
Yeah,
He
Henry Thomas, I think.
Yes, you're right, absolutely. I just said his name like 5 minutes ago. He plays the sense of wonder so well.
Oh, he's adorable. He's great. Yeah.
And if he had not been able to at that age pull that off, this film would have absolutely fallen apart. He was able to give you that, as you were discovering things, he was discovering things. So that sense of wonder and excitement bled through him. It just didn't make up for the film.
He was a wonderful actor then, and he's actually still a wonderful actor. He is part of the stable of, I forget the creator's name, but he does all of the Hill House and Midnight Mass.
Oh, yeah.
Those movies. And so he just did Follow the House of Usher.
Which was awesome.
Great in that. So I like that he's making a little bit of a comeback, or at least in my life he is.
Okay.
He's probably been around. All right, next.
That's all I have. Next on my list is Gandhi, but we can go anywhere.
Okay, let's go Gandhi.
All right. Gandhi, directed and produced by Richard Attenborough, and from a screenplay written by John Briley, stars Ben Kingsley, Candice Bergman, Edward Fox, John Gielgud, Trevor Howard, John Mills, Martin Sheen. Was nominated, I can't read my writing, but it was pretty much nominated for everything and won most everything. It only didn't win for, except for, we're not talking about Best Picture yet, it didn't win for, what does that say? Makeup, original score, and best sound. It didn't win for that, but won for everything else it was nominated for. There you go. Go with the facts.
All right, so it is not on the AFI list, first of all, which I found interesting.
That does surprise me.
That surprised me. So I've got two fun facts. One of them is my favorite fun fact.
Okay.
So
out of all
of the fun facts we found so far.
Even with your
because
birthday?
I picked, that was a good one, but this is because I picked it out as I was watching it.
Oh, okay.
And then I went back to verify that this is true. So do you remember the scene? There's a scene with John Ratzenberger and Candice Bergen. So John Ratzenberger, Cliff Clavin from Cheers, and Candice Bergen are driving along in a Jeep. And John Ratzenberger does not sound like his regular Cliff Clavin. And I thought, oh wow, he must have really put on the accent for Cheers. And I'm like, that's not his voice.
Was it overdubbed?
It was overdubbed by Martin Sheen. Because by the time they realized that they weren't able to pick up his voice over the sound of the Jeep, John Ratzenberger had already gone home and Martin Sheen was still on set. And so I was like, I think that's Martin Sheen. And so I was very proud of myself that I actually knew that.
Congratulations.
I do have a second fun fact
Sure.
for this is 300,000 extras were used in the funeral scene. That is the most ever in any movie. It's in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Wow, 300,000?
300,000.
Wow, I mean, there were a lot of people, but
Yep.
300,000,
That's a lot.
Amazing.
This is pre-CGI, able to build in crowds too.
Yeah. Okay. This was my second time seeing this film. I saw it once. I think this was a VHS rental, so probably a year and a half after it came out. So this was only my second time. I did remember liking it the first time and being impressed by Ben Kingsley, who I did not know at that age who he was.
Of course, yeah.
But he held up beautifully. I thought it was an interesting choice. I always like to talk about to open with his death and a celebration of his life.
Yeah.
To start there and then go through the chronological history. I thought that was an interesting choice. I also thought that it was a very smart choice to very early on in the movie show the inherent racism that he was facing and never backing away from that. And it wasn't like, here it is, here's racism. It was just like, this is what happens.
Every day, this is what he's dealing with.
And that's when, because it's the first time he's experiencing it, or that we see him experiencing it, that starts him on the path of questioning, like, why is this way?
Yeah.
Why aren't you doing something? You're a prominent businessman here, but you can't walk down the street with this guy. Why is that the way? Not necessarily judgmental at this point, just questioning why in South Africa this is the way things are. So it starts him down on the path, and I thought that was a good way to kind of open and get the groundings for this person. It takes a long time for him to become Gandhi, that we know.
Yep.
And so showing that as a slow transition, but the foundations of where that started, I thought was a brilliant and very well executed choice.
Yep, totally agree. It's one of those movies where, you know, they do these grand, epic, historical movies, and we've seen a lot of them to date, and they can do it well or they can do it badly, and I thought they did this one well.
Yes.
And also the same thing with a biopic is, you know, you pick a period of his life. It did not start with his childhood. It did not start with his full, you know, kind of like cradle to grave biopic. It was, this is the important part of his life that we want to show you. And I really enjoyed that. The other thing I like, and this is a change from Reds that we saw recently, is I didn't know a ton about India's fight for freedom, and it gave me exactly what I needed.
Yep.
It gave me the right amount. It didn't spoon feed me, but it gave me, as somebody who didn't know a lot, I think enough.
Yeah, and you knew enough because the film was showing you enough that when the end happens and they get their freedom, but they're still fighting, you understand why that was happening.
Exactly.
And that's important because everybody, and I'm guilty of this until I saw the movie again, I always thought it was a fight for India's independence. They won, and he was, woo, yay, everybody's happy.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, there were
Nothing's that
years
easy.
after where he was still upset, and his hunger strike happened way after.
Right, which I wasn't aware of that either.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't know all the timing of it. I think also the other piece is Ben Kingsley's performance. I mean, you know, it really, this is one of those movies we've talked about it. A couple of different ones. Patton was one where the movie hinges on the performance.
Yeah, 100%.
And he is amazing. He brings such humanity to this character that could have been, this person, that could have been a superhuman. You know, we know all these wonderful things about him, but he was flawed. But then it showed his humor, it showed his smarts, it showed how much he cared. I loved at the beginning with what was going on in South Africa, he could have fought for more, but he realized, no, this is what I told you I want, you're giving it to me, time for me to walk away now.
One of the things that I really do love about this film is it's a film, and all really good films will do this, is it makes you ask questions. One of the questions that I found myself consistently asking is, if you are a person of principle, how well do you adhere to your principles? When is there an appropriate place to back away because there's an exception to your principle? In this instance, for Gandhi, there never was, including his wife. And that became a struggle for the two of them for a while in the movie. But he was 100%, it doesn't matter what the obstacle is, this is the principle that I have, and I'm going to adhere to it no matter what. And that's fucking ballsy.
It is. No, I totally agree with you. I think the length of the movie was intimidating going into it, and then it just long, absolutely did not feel long. It was very compact. What else do you got?
You mentioned the history and how well they were kind of giving it to you. We quickly go from South Africa to India when he
Yes.
goes back, and that becomes the crux of the movie then. It's the focus of the rest of the movie. And a lot of folks, unless they're actively seeking out the information, don't understand all of the hundreds, if not thousands, of individual provinces that are in India that are not unified and together. And they played with that very, very well. Like, there's the upper crust of India in the big cities.
Yes.
And then there's the real India, that's quote unquote what they called it, which is you have to go into the jungle and go to the villages. And they played with that idea and gave you the breadth and scope of this country very well. They didn't just focus on, everybody knows what India is, so we're going to be the big cities.
Right.
And every once in a while we'll show you a jungle scene just because, Indian tigers and jungles, sure. They actually did go and show you all of the different facets of this country. So you're absolutely correct. The history was well laid out, but also their portrayal of the country was handled very well as well.
And I'd add to that the religions as well. Like, I don't think I realized how many different religions there are in the country.
Yeah, they're pretty much every religion on the planet is in that country.
Exactly, and so therefore, if each of them are kind of jockeying for position in this new government, you can understand why there's still conflict there too.
Yep.
And they did a nice job of showing that.
I have a question for you in this. So movies do this a lot when you focus on a central character going through a struggle. Like, you'll see the struggle that the character is going through, and then there'll cutaway scenes to the people in power making decisions, right? So you'll have, like in this case, you'll have Gandhi going through something, and then they cut to the British government deciding and debating what to do about it.
Right.
Some movies handle that very well. I thought this one handled it well, but I questioned some of those scenes if they were necessary. Like, do you really need to understand what the British government is thinking and doing in retaliation for him? Or does that actually enhance the film? Or is it just like, oh, here's some background information of what the English were doing?
I don't know, it didn't bother me, it didn't take
It
me
didn't
out
detract.
of the movie. Yeah.
My question is, did
It's
it
a good
enhance
question.
it?
I don't know. I don't know, because
Okay.
I thought it
That's
was
fair.
fine. Yeah, I thought it was fine as well. It's not something I picked up on, so to me it probably didn't enhance it, or I would have picked up on it as a positive. But I thought it was well done, and also, so I'm gonna pause on that question and pose a question for you. One of the things that bothered me in this movie was it was starring Ben Kingsley and Candice Bergen.
Yeah,
If
and she's
you
in it for
notice.
such a limited period of
Limited
time.
period of time, no character development. And so my question was, here is a movie about Indian people, a lot of people of color in this movie. Did they need kind of a white woman celebrity to show this at the theater and to get some kind of publicity behind it? So
Here's my thought process.
Okay.
This is 1982, 83?
Yeah.
So in order to get the movie to have funding,
Yes.
they would need a white popular star to be in the movie with top billing. They did that with her character.
Yeah.
I think they were smart to make her character a minor role so that they were able to focus on the things they needed to, but I guarantee to get the funding they had to throw. And we've got Candice Bergen, she's going to be all over this movie.
Exactly.
Like,
Well, so that kind of answers your question a little bit. And so, did they have to throw in a couple of? Well, yeah, but what were the British thinking? What were they doing? What was happening over there? You're showing me this point of view, but our audience is going to want to see this point of view as well. So to me, both of those are a little side by side.
I would be curious to talk to someone of Indian descent to see their side of it, because we only have ours. And,
Totally agree.
We're both white people. And this was starring an white English actor and directed by a white English director.
Ben Kingsley is of Indian descent.
Yes, but he is English.
British citizen, yeah.
So I'd be curious, because I think for me, it was handled with love, respect, and care. But I wonder if there's something, because we just are blind to it, that we might be missing in the portrayal. Like, was a particular portrayal not necessarily offensive, but not necessarily the full thing?
Yeah.
So I'm just curious about that.
I think that's a great question. Kind of like was Steven Spielberg the right person to do The Color Purple?
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's a great question.
Overall, this held up, and I probably enjoyed it more this time because I was able to see further into it and how the crafting of things were done. The shot choices, cinematography, they took advantage of that country so well.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, I love it.
And again, now that we know how big the funeral scene, very impressive. Very, very impressive.
All right, so what would you like to do next?
Let's do Missing.
All right, that's great because that's next to my list.
Excellent.
Missing, directed by Costa Gavras, who had done Z from before.
Oh, okay.
From a screenplay written by himself and Donald E. Stewart, adapted from the book The Execution of Charles Horman, An American Sacrifice. And it film stars Jack Lemmon, Sissy Spacek, Melanie Mayron, John Sheehan, Janice Rule, and Charles Kiafi. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Nominated for Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Adapted Screenplay. It won for Screenplay.
Okay, so the score of this movie was written by Evangelists, which you will remember of Chariots of Fire fame.
Yes, and it had the electronics.
And it had the electronics, but it's funny because it did not pop for me in the way that Chariots of Fire did, and so I'm wondering if it was as popular. And certainly it wasn't as popular at the time, but I wonder if it was popular at all at the time. The other thing which threw me for a complete loop was this is one of Wes Anderson's favorite movies.
Really?
I love Wes Anderson, so this throws me off a lot.
I can see it in...
I can't see it at all.
No,
so
I can, and
impressed.
we can talk in detail about that at a later point. I can see it. I'm still shocked and surprised by it, but I can see it.
Okay. All right. So what are your thoughts?
I did not like this movie.
Okay.
I wanted to like this movie a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I like a good suspense political drama kind of tale. I thought personally the casting was miscast.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I did not like. They all did fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are other actors I think could have done better because I was not engaged with any of the performances. I was engaged with Sissy's performance. Definitely not engaged with the guy who goes missing performance. He just annoyed the hell out of me. And Jack Lemmon, I thought was kind of phoning it in. I could not grasp on to him.
Okay.
It took a long time to even understand his motivation and caring. Like, I just couldn't get there with him.
All right, so that's interesting because I'll get to Jack Lemmon in a minute, but Sissy Spacek, I agree. I just thought she was flat.
Yeah.
And I didn't think she brought anything to the character.
No,
so
she was fine.
she was fine, but I did not like her. I agree. The one that went missing really was not that engaging at all. So whatever. I loved the Jack Lemmon performance. Actually,
Really?
I absolutely
It's going to
loved
be
it.
a Lenny situation, isn't it?
It could very well be, but I think part of it was because he was kind of a jerk in the beginning. He was very distant. He was very corporate. His religion meant a lot to him. His son was doing things that he didn't understand that were against his way of life. So, I think we were supposed to not like him and feel very distant from him. And then throughout, as he realized that his government that he depended on and that he believed did all the right things, it's like God and country, was lying to him and actually maybe responsible for his son's death, I saw much more heart and emotion. So I saw the arc of Jack Lemmon and I thought he did a beautiful job.
Okay, so after watching it, I sat in my head for a little bit going, I think because I agree with the portrayal of his character and what his character was going through in the arc. And what I would have preferred is to make that the forefront, to make him the central character that you're seeing all of this through, because he's the only interesting story that's happening throughout this entire thing. I will agree with
that, yes.
So have him be the focus, have this be essentially his story, not Sissy's story, or even the guy who went missing story, but Jack's story. And I think that would have been a far better in to elevate the film overall if you had focused on that, because I agree, his was the character that did have arc.
Yeah.
He was a snot in the beginning, he's still a snot at the end, but at least you have understanding and kind of sympathy for him. He's brutally honest at all points, even with government officials being like, just tell me what I need to do. Like, he even pleads with one person at one point, you can blindfold me, gag me, I don't care, just let me see my son.
Like, I will pay whatever money you tell me, I will forget whatever it is you need me to forget, just bring me my son, I don't care. I don't care how we got here, just give me my son back.
Yeah, and I thought all of that was genuine. I couldn't latch on to Jack's performance of that. I liked the character and like you said, the arc that the character went through. I just couldn't latch on to Jack's performance of that character. He was fine. He was actually a little bit better than fine. I just couldn't latch on to it.
Yep, that's fair.
One of the criticisms I do have of this movie is it takes a long time to understand just what the hell is happening.
Oh yeah.
You like, it opens and they're talking about all the dangers and there's a curfew and like there's some sort of panic but not really, And then 2 minutes later, you're seeing dead bodies in the street. A girl, a woman, her pants are being ripped because women aren't allowed to wear pants. They have to be in skirts. And you're just like, what the hell is going on? Like, the importance of this isn't really shown and talked about. And it's not even just given out at dribbles. It's this looming thing over the top that you see glimpses of every once in a while, particularly when, you know, we have all the dead bodies and they're going through the scene of room after room after room of dead bodies trying to see if their son is there. Like, the importance of that was so understated, it detracted from the importance of him being missing and was he dead, was he not, etc. It just detracted from me.
I agree, and also there was a huge red herring at the beginning of, you start with the guy who goes missing and another woman.
Yeah.
And they are together, and so at first they showed that they were sleeping in separate beds when they were together, so I'm like, okay, they're partners, they're journalists, they're something, I don't know what's happening, but then it turns out they're like, no, they're just friends who went out on a lark so that she could see the seaside before she goes back to the States. And look at what is happening around them, and look at the curfew, and the same thing with Sissy Spacek missing her bus. And I know that these things happened, so they can't change the arc of what actually happened.
Right.
But like, the decisions that were made were not good decisions.
No, they didn't really further, they just muddled the overall story they were trying to say.
Yes.
And even to further that, some of the directorial choices they made, I thought were very interesting, but they were one-offs. Like the scene when he's talking to the witnesses, recanting the fact that they saw him.
Yes.
And it's 3 different versions that keep going back and forth.
I did not like that.
I thought it was an interesting choice and would have been great, but it's a one-off. It's 3 minutes of film and doesn't belong if you're not doing interesting things like that elsewhere.
Right.
It's so glaringly out of place because, and you know what it was. It was a director going, oh, this is going to be a cool thing that we're going to do. It's going to be awesome. And like, yeah, it's a cool thing. Does not deserve to be in this film.
Within a boring movie. Yeah. Exactly. Well, like, for instance, the Sissy Spacek, when she misses curfew and she's running around the streets trying to get back to her
with
house.
That guy,
yeah, that was really good and tense and interesting, I thought. But that's the one time that was there. So it didn't give us much of a backstory into who they were and what their lives were. They were, you know, somewhat trying to tell the story of what was going on, which we really didn't even know what was going on. Did they even say the country that it was in?
No. They may have, and if so, I totally missed it.
I don't think that they did. I read it when I was reading some Wikipedia stuff about this, looking for my fun facts. But I didn't even know it was Chile until they said it was Chile.
There are also scenes in there that seemed unnecessary, like when Sissy's in the bathtub and the guy who's supposedly helping him just comes in out of the blue and just starts talking to her and staring at her and then starts to hit on her like, you're gonna have to move on eventually, like, get on with your life. Yeah, and unnecessarily so.
Wildly unnecessary.
Unless that guy like actually did that and it's part of the story that gets told. Okay, but still it's a singular scene that doesn't belong. This whole movie is made up of all of these disconnected scenes, essentially, with a very loose plot going through. It's only Jack's character that has an actual narrative.
And I do think that he did well in a very flawed movie.
Yeah, I did not like this. I was so disappointed because, again, I went in with the expectation of, I really want to like this. Sissy Spacek, Jack Lemmon. I love Jack Lemmon. I admire Sissy. This is going to be good. It's going to be a political thriller. I love those. No, it just failed on every level.
Yeah. And also, you kind of knew what was going to happen from the beginning. Shall we move on to the other movie about an aging star who is trying to do this tour de force performance in The Verdict?
Sure.
All right.
The Verdict, directed by Sidney Lumet, written by David Mamet, one of my favorite playwrights ever. Adapted from Barry Reed's 1980 novel of the same name, stars Paul Newman, Charlotte Rampling, Jack Warden, James Mason, one of your favorites, Milo Oshia, and Lindsay Krause. Nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Screenplay based on other material and from another medium, and it did not win anything.
All right, it is not on the AFI list.
Shocker.
But the fun facts are, and you'll enjoy this, Lindsay Krause, who played the victim's sister, was married to David Mamet. at the time.
Really?
So yes, I thought that was
Okay.
interesting. And also, Bruce Willis is one of the uncredited observers in the courtroom. If you go
okay.
back and just even Google Bruce Willis the verdict, it shows pictures of him. He's sitting behind the couple, the sister and brother-in-law.
So this was 82?
82.
So had Moonlighting come out then?
No, that was like in 85, I
Okay,
think,
okay.
somewhere around there. So coming, it was coming.
Yeah. So he was putting in the effort. He was putting in the work.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Excuse me.
Alrighty.
I do enjoy, even though it's a trope and not a lot really breaks out of it, but I enjoy a well-crafted courtroom drama.
Okay.
The inherent tension in that is it's already got the rules built in for you just to have a good time. This was not that movie. And I like, even in those when they take it outside of the courtroom so you can see some of the things that happen outside in the presentations getting back into it. Because there are a lot of courtroom dramas that are strictly in the courtroom.
Right.
But I like when you can see all of the machinations that
Behind the
go
scenes, yeah.
into it. Again,
Negotiations and
Yeah.
whatnot. Yep.
the preparing, do we talk to this person, do we talk to all of that. I liked that, seeing those decisions made. This was not one of those films. We see him at first as essentially an ambulance chaser,
Yes. Yep.
hardcore drunk,
Yep.
and then that's never really explored. It's
He
kind of
gets
dropped.
over it. It just gets over it.
It's dropped.
Exactly.
It's full on dropped.
That like falling down drunk alcoholism, it really isn't a problem later in the movie once he finds his goal. Yeah. Okay, well, I'm gonna just talk about the whole like courtroom drama. I love a good courtroom drama. I totally agree with you. I love A Time to Kill, A Few Good Men. I even like a good old episode of LA Law. Like, I don't care. I'm gonna pull the asshole attorney card on you.
Uh-oh.
Because this was so bad. It was so bad. I mean, like, I am happy to watch a courtroom drama and suspend disbelief all over the place. This didn't even follow anything close to a lawyer and what they do on a regular basis. He should have been disbarred like 16 different times. You cannot move forward if somebody offers a settlement, you must bring that to your client.
Yeah.
And if the judge knows that you didn't, then you will be disbarred. Like, that's it. No getting out of jail. So, like, everything that they did, there were like 17 different places where I'm like, well, mistrial, 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 and disbarment. And it made me crazy.
Are you saying they took some leeway with the legal system?
And I am fine with that in a well-crafted courtroom drama. Because, again, like, somebody gets hit by a car in the morning and they're in court by the afternoon. Oh, sure, that happens all the time.
Oh, of course.
Absolutely. Or, the missing witness shows up. Sure, I'm willing to go with that, but not in this case. The missing witness that he went to New York, brought back, it was awful. It made me crazy.
This movie to me, and I think, you can totally correct me, but I think this is the first real attempt at Oscar bait.
Certainly by Paul Newman, and maybe altogether.
I can't think of any of the other movies that were so blatantly what we now refer to as Oscar bait.
Yeah.
Take a central character with a problem, they overcome that problem.
You're probably right.
This is the first one I can really think of. Others had issues and problems, but they were never blatant like this one was.
Well, I think we weren't focusing on a lot of the best actresses that weren't tied to Best Picture.
Okay.
So that's the only thing, is if they weren't tied to a Best Picture. Certainly none of them that were tied to a Best Picture. I absolutely agree with you.
And again, the problem is, like, his whole affliction, we'll call it, is
Gone.
just basically completely abandoned 15 minutes into the movie, and it doesn't make sense. And I'm just going to jump right to the end. The verdict? No! I'm sorry. Everything was against them, 100%. They were losing the case. But the impassioned speech, which really wasn't that impassioned, suddenly turns around an entire jury with no factual evidence, with nothing to actually let these people go or to award them a sentence, and to go one step further and say, can we give them more, please?
So that's
Fuck off!
That's a thing that is illegal, that is called jury nullification. That attorneys go up to the jury and say, I know that you have heard everything here, ignore it because this is a really bad guy, or this is a really good guy. It's called jury nullification. It's illegal. You get disbarred for it, and that's what he did, and got rewarded for it. That is another thing that made me crazy. So yes, the only thing I will say about this movie that made me crazy until it didn't was the introduction of the love interest, Laura. because throughout, when she showed up, I'm like, why is she interested in this loser? Why is she hanging out with this loser? What is happening? And then I realized, okay, she was paid to be with him to be a mole on the inside. I'm like, oh, okay, well that actually makes sense, because there was no way this attractive, smart woman would be with this loser.
It is Hollywood.
Well, that's true, and he is Paul Newman, and there's still a lot going on there, even his age. But still, I did not like the love interest angle, and
No.
it didn't seem necessary. At the end of the day, I hate to say it, but this was a small stakes case.
Yeah.
This was it was medical malpractice, and honestly, he should have taken the money or negotiated up a higher amount rather than go to.
But then we wouldn't have a movie.
Because he found his heart. He took those Polaroids of this woman, and all of a sudden he found his heart again.
And I will say that the performance in that did exactly what the movie wanted you to see.
Yes.
He did show that he was changing. It was way over the top. It was unnecessary and badly handled. But Paul Newman did what the director told him to do. Like, this is where you change. You need to go through something emotionally to see it in your face. Go ahead and change now, please. Okay, great. Thanks.
And he did, and they got it.
Yeah.
But
Unnecessary, though.
I know. And I love Jack Warden anytime. I think he's fantastic. I just adore him. But yeah, I wrote down, like, I did my little pros cons list. The con was the entire story.
Yeah.
One case made him care and stop being a fall-down drunk.
Which I'm fine with that, though. There can be moments that will change your life, and this can be one of those moments. But give us something.
Make us understand why.
Yeah.
And it did not.
And also make it a better story.
And the funny part is that I listen to a lot of movie podcasts, and all of them like talk about the verdict like it is one of the best courtroom dramas out there.
They're
I'm
terrific.
so glad that you don't like it.
No, I could not stand it.
Okay.
I wanted to, because again, love a courtroom drama.
Yeah.
Paul Newman, great. But it got bungled from the beginning and just never was able to recover. It was bad decision after bad decision after bad decision.
Exactly.
It never redeemed itself for me.
Yep, I'm with you.
Okay, let's quickly skate away from that because it just makes me feel icky.
Okay, well, you think Tootsie is going to make you feel less sticky. Go for it. Alrighty.
All right, such a great year for nominated films, considering all the other ones that were out there. Just saying, Academy. Tootsie. Directed by Sidney Pollack, from a screenplay by Larry Gelbart and Murray Shizgal. Apologies. It stars Dustin Hoffman, Jessica Lange, Harry Gard, Dabney Coleman, and Charles Durning. Nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actress, Best Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, Best Original Song, and Best Sound. It won for Supporting Actress, and that was the only thing that it won.
Alright, this movie is on the AFI list.
Oh my god. I'm seriously starting to doubt the AFI
I
list.
think we should. I think we need to really think about this. So it's on the current list at number 69. It has moved down a few. In 1998, it was number 62.
Okay.
Fun facts is this movie was brought to us in part by Buddy Hackett. So, not expecting that, right?
One of the greatest insult comics of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I can kind of see that. I wonder if he had any influence on the film.
So there was a script kind of like floating around Hollywood and not getting much traction, and he read it and he liked it, and he wanted to be the agent, the Sidney Pollack role.
Okay.
And so he brought it to Robert Evans, who, the big guy in Hollywood, and that's kind of how it got to the hands that finally made it. So I did find that was interesting.
So my first comment on this film is essentially this is Mrs. Doubtfire, but a drama. We probably wouldn't have Mrs. Doubtfire without this.
Probably not.
Either film can just fuck off as far as I'm concerned. Sorry, I'm swearing a ton in this one just because I'm angry about this year.
Taking it very personally.
I really am. It's like they decided, hey Carol, we're going to dangle all of these cool films out there for you that were not nominated for anything because we think they're crap. But these are the ones we think are really good. And yeah, they're just giving me the finger. They did it personally.
That's it. It's all about you.
Yeah, it is, 100%.
12, 10-year-old probably?
Yep, they knew. They knew that we'd be doing this podcast.
I know. They should have thought.
Okay, the opening. We get the environment, we get the situation. It's overkill, but we get it. It's fine. A difficult actor redefines himself as a woman to work and get money to produce a play. Tensions are good. He wants to do it for his best friend.
Sure. And he's kind of a jerk, so nobody will hire him, and you see why.
Yeah, and it's expressed to him completely. Like, nobody wants to work with you. Here are all the reasons why. while being given the reasons, he shows what a jerk he is because he
Mhm.
doesn't recognize, oh, if I just shut my mouth when I was playing a tomato, I would have been fine.
Yep.
Then we get what it's like to be a woman told through this film. Now, I'm going to ask you this question. Not being a woman, even I was kind of like, huh, all right, that's what it's like to be a woman in the 80s. Don't think so, but okay.
So here's the thing that we are trying to do, and I tried to do it in this movie, and this was a very hard movie, was looking at it through the lens
Yep.
of 1982.
I understand.
That was very, very difficult. I think that it probably got some things right, and it got a lot of things wrong. So, it's funny because I always thought it was a comedy. You're calling it a drama. I thought it was a comedy. And most comedies of the 80s are pretty problematic in today's lens.
Sure,
if we're
100%,
looking at it
yeah.
that way. But yes, I think there was definitely some truth in what he said in 1982. I think there was much more overt sexism, much more overt, like guys' sexual assault, attempted sexual assault, which is what that was. I think that was much more overt and, what you would see in the early 80s. But no, it was in no way a realistic portrayal of being a woman then.
So it's an interesting choice, I think, and maybe what they were trying to do was, because it was accessible through a man, show some of the problems that women are facing.
Yes.
And if that was the case, I will applaud them for the attempt. It's difficult to see Dustin Hoffman's character dressed as a woman chastising the men that she's encountering.
Oh, yes.
Because to me, rather than elevate it to be like, y'all should be paying attention to what this person is doing, it denigrates it. It does not elevate it.
Yes.
And that's a problem for me. Sure, you can get upset because this person is consistently not using your name, probably hasn't even learned it, and is just using these really bad terms for you, honey, sweetie, whatever, rather than learn who you are. Okay, sure, that's a problem, and you're pointing that out as a problem, but does it have to come from you? Like, I get that the point, I think, was to have this guy recognize all of these things, go and because of that, go through a transformation.
Yes.
I get that, but I still wasn't buying it.
No, I don't believe. I don't even know what they were going for, what it was supposed to be.
I think that might have been it.
I think probably. So it's interesting because I read, again, it's all on the internet, so take it with a giant grain of salt. But I read that Dustin Hoffman had given an interview that he figured that he was going to get all dressed up and they were going to put a ton of makeup and prosthetics and he was going to be this gorgeous woman. And he isn't. He is an unattractive woman, or a like mediocre woman anyway. And he was really upset by that because in his mind, he thought, this is what he said in the article, was he thought, if women only tried, they could all be gorgeous. And so he said, so I'm thinking about all of these women who were smart and interesting and had things to say that I'd walk by at a party because they're not pretty enough for me. And so he's like, that opened my eyes to there may be unattractive women out there that I should pay more attention to.
Okay, well that's
so
a
I'm
positive.
like, that's actually a little bit of growth. If it's true, that's a little bit of growth. So I thought that was a little bit interesting is, okay, again, don't judge a book by its cover more than anything. It tried to do so much though with the Terry Garr role and Jessica Lange and Jessica Lange's father, Charles Durning. Like there was just way too much sexual confusion that was happening in this movie.
Yeah, even to the point where like a man is dressed as a woman and other men are attracted to this woman. Okay, are you making some sort of commentary on that? Like, all men are inherently homosexual? Are you going that far? Are you just trying to play up a comedic routine because, this guy likes this person he thinks is a woman, but it's really a dude, that's kind of funny. Like,
I think maybe that was it.
But you don't know.
Yeah,
like,
no, yeah.
Sorry, well,
Careful there.
that was my point, is you didn't know which one it was supposed to be, because the film, like films that we've talked about before, touch on a lot of things, but don't either dive in deep enough. They just like, oh, and here's the thing, and then we'll kind of breeze by it. Like,
I totally agree, and actually, it's funny. I know that Jessica Lange won the Best Supporting Actress for this. I would have given it to Terry Garr in a minute because at least I understood her character. They didn't give any depth to Jessica Lange. She was a sad single mother alcoholic. I mean, did she grow at all during the
She
course of the
went
movie?
through that whole thing like, I know I can do better, but I'm happy with my life. She went
Exactly.
through that.
And so like I'm gonna break up with Dabney Coleman. I guess that was her growth, but I was not impressed terribly by the character arc, her character arc, or even her performance. And at the end of the day, Michael Dorsey was a terrible person.
And the argument
He lied to and led all these people along.
And an argument can be made that the only reason why Dustin Hoffman's character was pointing out all of these things that were being problematic for women was because he just wanted to sleep with Jessica Lange.
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah.
So does that matter? If you're not doing it genuinely, do the actions still justify?
Yeah.
Like, again, make a choice, stick with the choice, explore that choice that you're making. Rightly, wrongly, I don't care, but make the choice. Don't just be like, oh, and here's a thing. And then here's another thing, and then here's a third thing.
The only thing that it said that I think I took away from it that I liked a little bit was, or what makes me crazy in the world is when people only see something if it impacts them. Sexism only exists because he sees sexism. So, oh wow, that exists. I never saw that before.
Okay.
And same thing, like racism. All of the other isms that exist out there in the world, a lot of people do not see them unless they actually happen to them or someone they love. And so that bothered me a lot too, was like, oh wow, there's sexism out there. Who knew? That's crazy. Yeah.
Not straight white
Until I put a dress on, I had no idea.
I'm gonna make a comment, and I hope you laugh at this. The movie White Chicks had more commentary than this movie did about the same subject matter.
I have not seen it, but I actually believe that knowing who the creators of it were. So I respect them with this subject matter more than this crowd. Although I do love Sidney Pollack, and I think he did a great job both directing and being the agent. I thought he was funny.
Okay, missed opportunity. We've seen this in a lot of films, unfortunately. They miss their opportunity. They think they're telling a great story, but write another draft. Like pick something to stand for or on, or a point that you want to make, and give it to us.
There's no introspection in this movie at all.
No, no.
Yep, I agree. Alrighty then.
Shall I do a little drum roll?
I think you should.
I totally went to do it and couldn't. I couldn't.
Nicely done. Okay. Do you want to take a guess?
I think you're going with Gandhi. You should probably say which one won.
Okay, Gandhi won. There you go.
I think you're going with Gandhi.
And I'm going with Gandhi. I think Gandhi was the best picture of these five. How about you?
I 100% agree. There are 4 garbage movies and 1 really good one.
Yeah, pretty much, unfortunately. And I loved Tootsie in the moment. Like, I remember as a kid is when I watched this when it came out. Thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, I don't remember. I know I'd seen it before. I don't remember when, or even if I paid attention, because so much of this was new. Yeah. I know I had seen it was on in a place that I was, but I don't know how actively I watched it.
Yeah, some of these rewatches I do with family, and I'm like, oh yeah, like we did Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'm like, oh, we should do Tootsie together. And my family wasn't available, and as I watched it, I'm like, oh, I'm really glad that I'm watching this by myself, because it's terrible.
So, one final thing, because I keep coming back to this and trying to use points that illustrate what I mean, the things that separate a good film from a great film. Gandhi is an example of a film that shows you'd mentioned that they chose to focus on just very specific aspects of the life, which were the correct choices. If they had done too much or given too much backstory or focused too much on some of the more minor elements that impacted him, this would not be the same movie. So this is an example of the choices they made to portray those time periods were the correct choices. Other movies have lingered too long or given too much information that was unnecessary to the story that was being told. This is an example of one that did it correctly. So I'm going to keep harping on these things when I find them to be like, this is an example of the choice that I'm talking about.
Yep, I fully agree with you.
Okay, I'm done with this year.
All right, sounds good. Let's hope next year has some better choices.
I've seen them. It's better.
Okay, good deal.
See ya.